All right, welcome to the Criminal Justice Improvement Committee breakout. And the first thing I would like to say is thank you to Navin Pire. He's about to retire, and I would like to say thank you for everything you have done for North Carolina, the committee, and GCC. I'll miss you, but if you have anything you would like to say to Navin about retiring, just put it in the chat, and we'll see it. He will see it later. And second thing I would like to say is if you have a PMT outstanding and an open grant, please submit it in the PMT website. Please submit that. Deadlines are coming up. Please submit your PMT. If you're a 2025 grant recipient and your status says return to recipient, please resubmit your application if you have done your modifications. Please resubmit it. I will not be able to see it if you don't submit it back in EBS. Also, if your status says awarded, we had some difficulties with DocuSign and special conditions. Just bear with us. We're going to get the award to you. It's not affected. It will start October 1st. You can bill us for October 1st. Don't worry about it. We just had a little problems. Your award will be coming. All right. We have on the Criminal Justice Improvement Team. We have myself, Keon Ash, Navin Perry, Sandy Dixon, and MK Smith. Next slide, Navin. The mission statement of the committee. The mission of the Criminal Justice Improvement Committee is to encourage proactive and innovative programming and methodologies that improves the criminal justice system. Desired improvements include reducing and discouraging violent crimes and associated problems, enhancing all aspects of the criminal justice processing to include incarceration and treatment of offenders and advanced justice system operations. This year, CJI funding priorities are Byrne JAG, RSAP, and SCIP. Please note that with changes at the federal level, GCC reserves the right to eliminate or change priorities at any time. At any time, we can change it. Byrne JAG eligibility, one application per implementing agencies. Counties denote tier levels. So if you're ever wondering, okay, where did they get these tier levels from? Where did they get all this stuff? We are using the Department of Commerce link. You can go to the Department of Commerce and find your tier level for your county. But if you are a municipality, a city or town, if you're wondering, hey, distress or at risk, I don't know. We're using the Economic Innovation Group website. Please go there before you turn in your application and find out what tier you're in or distress level you're in when you're applying for these grants. All right, the 2026 Byrne JAG funding priorities will be the North Carolina CALIA accreditation and statewide accreditation, the state and regional infrastructure, law enforcement training and initiatives, community outreach programs, community mental health initiatives, and law enforcement equipment. All right, North Carolina CALIA and a statewide accreditation. The state agency's funding cap this year is $200,000 a year. The funding cap for local agencies is $75,000. The length of the award is up to 2 years. Only the North Carolina CALIA accreditation will be supported if the agency has not started or is in self-assessment phase of the North Carolina CALIA accreditation, and the agency is not in the self-assessment phase or fully accredited by CALIA. This year, CALIA will not be supported with these funds at all. Agencies must state in the first sentence of their project abstract narrative field in EBS application their accreditation status. We're already done it for you. This is what you put. Our agency attests that we are requesting NC CALIA accreditation, that we are not yet fully NC CALIA accredited, and that we are not currently in the process of nor possesses CLIA accreditation. You don't have to make up your own language. We have it for you right here. These funds can be used to pay for accreditation fees, support for officers and employee overtime, such as an accreditation manager, and other key contributors to the accreditation process, which must be documented by the time and activity sheet, and supplies needed to support the accreditation effort for assistance in reviewing and improving the agency policies and procedures. Next, we have the state and regional infrastructure. This is capped at $200,000 a year. Length of the award is 2 years. Local government agencies must have 5 counties or a minimum combined population of 400,000 in the service region. All state agencies can apply. You must support the mission statement and operations to enhance the readiness and effectiveness of law enforcement departments by combating hate crimes, promoting public trust between communities and criminal justice agencies, reducing violent crimes, preventing sex and human trafficking programs, specialty court, community violence intervention, crime analysis and investigation, and potential fentanyl-related support teams. This can include infrastructure, technology, contractual services, and equipment. It is important to note that this will be the last priority considered for funding. Again, this will be the last priority considered for funding only after the committee has allocated funds to local partners to meet our local allocation requirements. Law enforcement training initiatives. The funding cap is $50,000 a year. The length of the award up to 2 years. $50,000 can be used, up to $50,000 can be used for training for the benefit of law enforcement agencies. Applicants can be a non-law enforcement, but training must benefit law enforcement officers. Others can be included as trainees, such as other local community service providers, but law enforcement officers must also be attendees of the training. Now, the priority will be for regional training or training of more than one law enforcement agency, so multi-agency training. Now, the higher priority will be given for recruitment and retention training for law enforcement officers. Law enforcement training including but not limited to ACEs informed training, duty to intervene, mass violence prevention, law enforcement recruitment and retention best practice, crisis response, drug suppression, financial fraud, gang response and interventions. Examples of this can include, but not limited to, crisis intervention teams, emergency response training exercises, and mobile field force training. All right, community outreach programs. The funding cap this year is $200,000, up to 2 years. Law enforcement or community-oriented program development in the areas of ACEs, informed de-escalation, duties to intervene, mass violence prevention, law enforcement recruitment and retention best practice, crisis response and other mental health, drug suppression, financial fraud, other public safety scenarios, rural co-responder model, behavior threat and assessment, social worker, violence prevention, SROs, and SRO school safety programs. It's all included in this community outreach programs priority. Community mental health initiative. This year, the funding cap, $200,000 for large jurisdictions. That's a population of 200,000 or more. $120,000 for medium jurisdictions. That's a population of 50,000 to 200,000, and 100,000 a year for small jurisdictions. That's a population of 50,000 or less. That's your small counties. The length of the award is up to 2 years. Now, what could be included in this award is pilot projects, models to promote by the National Alliance of Mental Illness. You must show an association between local law enforcement agencies, mental health service providers, and local government support. You must ensure that the projects can be self-sustained once the grant funds have been expended. Memorandums of agreement and memorandums of cooperation, agencies must show in the narrative of the application that they have already reached out with other community partners and already have their arrangements in place. If you're a therapist, if you're gonna have a therapist on it, they can't be a law enforcement officer. Can't be billed twice. Can't be a law enforcement officer. Funds can be used to support training, salaries, and some supplies. You must show measurable results. Preference is for applications that engage with in-house mental health intended to break down barriers. Last but not least, law enforcement equipment grant. 50,000 up to a year. Eligible sub-recipients. You use that link I told you about earlier. Tier 1 counties or economically distressed towns and cities. What we looking for this year? We're looking for radios. We're looking for cameras. In the order of priorities, body cameras, in-car cameras, and street cameras. And then we're looking for your MDTs, mobile data terminals. Now, any other requests can be submitted, but is given a lower priority in the competitive process.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Navin. We also are soliciting for an RSAT program priority for local government, and RSAT is a fund that we receive from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. It is for residential substance abuse treatment. This is a solicitation, but it's really only for one project. It will be for, county jails, because this is meant to be a program inside the jails, into a local jail, I should say. One project will be selected. The maximum you can apply for is on the screen. It's $105,000. It does require a cash or an in-kind match of 25%. And it's for local jails that are going to implement, a substance use disorder treatment program. And they can include the medication assistance treatment, for their incarcerated population. The focus is to prepare individuals for reintegration into the community, after recovery. In order to apply, you must include into your application and your narrative the per capita rates of overdose death and overdose emergency room admissions in your locality. This can be found by the Department of Health and Human Services dashboard. The preferences for new programs, but if there's an existing program that can justify their need to expand, that can be placed into the application. And the preferences for the Tier 1 counties, as you can see on the link and then listed out below on the slide. Again, this is sort of a new requirement out of the RSAT fund. It's new for us as an entity. We've only been able to do this for a couple of years so far, but it's something we're putting out there for basically county jails to apply for if they're interested in doing so. Now, the next segment of our presentation is about the SCIP priorities, and I'll bring in Sandy Dixon.
Navin. First, I want to start off by talking about SCIP, State Crisis Intervention Program, and I want to explain that this is a newer funding source to GCC. We have been learning about it over the last couple cycles. We are continuing to learn about it, as is the federal government, because this is also new for them. This is a more complex funding source. It does require us to follow some additional rules, regulations, and get additional federal approvals as compared to most of our other funding sources. We have a SCIP advisory board that reviews these applications and they make the recommendations for funding. I wanted to just review it overall that you will be allowed to submit one application per implementing agency under SCIP priority. We are going to retain some caps. We had a solicitation last spring, so we're retaining those caps. Our local government projects will be prioritized. We have to meet some complex allocation requirements of these funds, and right now we need some more submissions from local governments in order to meet that allocation. So while we will consider statewide and nonprofit applications, they will be given a lower funding priority. We've learned about this funding sources. It is really essential that your application address how the proposed activities and costs address crisis intervention. While prevention may be an outcome of your project, that is not what we need to see within your project narrative. We need you discussing how you're selecting the most at-risk individuals that need this type of intervention. And so since there's limited space within the narrative, please focus your narrative on addressing crisis intervention. This funding source also, the SCIP Advisory Board would like to look at Tier 1 projects, as well as distressed and at-risk level communities, those that are most under-resourced. And so the information here is for you, and it is the same as CJI. All right, so there's 4 funding priorities for 2026 SCIP. We have court-based crisis intervention, community-based services for people in crisis, law enforcement crisis intervention programs, and finally, domestic violence intervention programs. All right, so first we'll look at court-based. The cap is $250,000 per year for up to 2 years. I need to let you know that the State Administrative Office of the Courts is not eligible to apply. So this will have to be either a government, local government, or nonprofit. Projects here would identify, triage, or connect court-involved individuals in crisis. It would expand the existing capacity of drug courts or mental health courts or veteran treatment courts. It would also implement or expand domestic violence courts. And here the focus is on gun-related violence, those most at risk, embedding social workers within prosecutors or public defender or court agencies to provide screening, assessment, and referral for people in crisis, prosecutor pretrial or court diversion programs, also development and implementation of validated gun risk assessments or the enhancements of those assessments, and case management and navigation programs. Also community courts that connect people in crisis with community resources, programming and training on domestic violence cases and related protective orders, and threat assessment training for prosecutors, judges, law enforcement, and public defenders. Next up is community-based services for people in crisis. We've provided a resource there just under the program priority title for you for best practices and a toolkit for guidance for emergency response for those with any sort of behavioral health or other disabilities. Here, the cap again is $250,000 for up to 2 years. We're looking for pre-arrest law enforcement and first responder deflection, assertive community treatment, other behavioral threat assessment programs, and any training that may be needed, triage services and mobile crisis units, suicide and crisis prevention, technological such as smartphone applications, and this would be to help families and patients navigate their mental health systems, behavioral health response and civil legal response for people in crisis. This could include regional crisis call centers, mobile teams, and stabilization facilities. de-escalation training for law enforcement, first responders, and other practitioners, and embedding social workers within a law enforcement agency and providing a co-responder model for those with behavioral health needs. Specialized training for individuals who work with or are in families of adults and youth who are in crisis. And related law enforcement-based programs, training, and technology. Again, the focus has to be on crisis intervention for those most at risk for themselves or others. And here we also have our hospital-based violence intervention programs. We also have law enforcement crisis intervention programs and initiatives. Again, $250,000 per year, up to 2 years. The development or delivery of specialized training, including crisis response and intervention training, and overtime for officers to attend that training. Training for school resource officers on how to identify youth at risk for firearm violence. Supplies, equipment, and technology for how to safely secure, store, track, and return relinquished firearms. Firearm safety training for community members, and systems to purchase or enhance or facilitate services or tracking of ERPOs. I want to stop here. North Carolina does not have extreme risk protective orders, but if we were to get those, then that is an area that could be funded as well. So just wanted you to be aware, we do not currently have extreme risk protection orders, also known as red flag laws. Analysis and information sharing solutions for ensuring law enforcement and the court systems and public defenders are informed when a prohibited person attempts to purchase a firearm. Data collection, analysis, and strategic planning to address community gun violence, and then the personnel, supplies, and other related costs for crisis intervention officers or co-responders. We have domestic violence intervention programs. This is $50,000 per year for up to 2 years. Of note here, agencies cannot receive DVIP program funds for more than one GCC funding source. So another area that funds DVIPs is the Violence Against Women Act funding, and so just wanted you to be aware of that. And our requirements here is that the DVIP program must be approved by the Council for Women, now known as the Division of Women and Youth, out of the Department of Administration. They must address how the proposed activities and costs will address the crisis intervention that's happening within the family. And then this, the applicants must be a nonprofit or local government. Just provided you some resources here. Later in the program today, you'll be hearing more about data and how that data can support your submissions to us. So those are some resources for you there. And I just want to, we see this often, and it's really important to fill in this box, but we often see that this little box within your budget detail line is not completed. As we work through the various federal approvals, the more information you give us, the better. So we will need to understand exactly why that budget line is needed, and this can give you some additional space without having to take up the space within the narrative of the application. So please complete this. And for training projects, we want to see the estimate of the number of participants and the impact that it may have statewide. Also for SCIP, for those of you who may have applied under SCIP previously, we had asked for a letter from you all, from your local unit of government, supporting your project and how it will benefit that local unit of government, especially if you're a nonprofit. We have learned that we cannot ask you for that, and so we will be trying to obtain those letters. However, any communication that you could have in advance of submitting your application, and giving your local units of government sort of a heads up that, hey, we're going to apply for these funds and this is how it will benefit, collaborating with them, setting up MOUs, that would be helpful as we try to get these letters from the local units of government. Again, it's just a requirement that if we are not to that. Also, and this has been mentioned in others, a site visit called a pre-award risk assessment, better known as a PARA, is required prior to the first time that a subrecipient receives GCC funding, or if it's been more than 5 years since you received funding. All right. Lastly, I just want to mention that a lot of you all may have applied last year under another funding source called the Community Violence Intervention and Prevention Initiative. That funding was limited funding, time limited funding for GCC. And so if you received 1 year funding for that funding source last year, please look to SCIP or the JAG funding as alternatives, and please reapply this year. Are there any questions?
Sandy, I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.